Gentile Nation, man. Chris Walker. Coming to y'all again, man. Speaking on the past and the future and your present moment and how they all work together to make you who you are. Despite what we told that because you used to be this or because you used to do this, your future can't look like this. And all of this is a lie. I'm living proof of it, and the Word of God tells us otherwise. We're coming out of Romans 8:28 to verse 31. We're going to be all over the place, and I'm going to use the Word of God. I'm going to use Scripture to back up what I'm saying, but I'm also going to be realistic with y'all and talk about real life. We're going to read what the Word say first. Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose. For whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, whom he predestined, these he also called. Whom he called, these he also justified. And whom he justified, these he also glorified. Amen. See, now how does this tie into everything we talking about? Now, with everything we talking about, people tell us, I'm going to use myself in particular, because I was in prison, because I used to be a thug, because I was robbing, because I was selling drugs, because I was a womanizer, or what have you, whatever they say, this did not contribute to making me who I am. That was just negative things that I should write off and forget that they ever happened. But the Word tell me otherwise. It say, for all things work together for the good of those who love God. But you say, how could that work for my good? Because the things I was doing landed me in the situations and circumstances that I have been in, and they produce certain character and morals in me. It made me smart enough and wise enough to know not to do certain things. Only way I know if this hot is if I touch it. So because I was doing these things, now I know the effect and the consequences behind them and what they're going to have in your life. Can you learn this without going through it? Yes, certainly. But the best experience is going through it. Nobody can tell me what it feels like to be in prison who has not been there with me. And because I've been in prison, because of these things, I can appreciate freedom much more. I know the values of life. I know what's important versus the materialistic thing. Just being able to open my refrigerator, spend time with my son because I was took away from all of that. So what was intended for bad for me ended up working in my good because it made me the man I am today. It made me a good father with my son because I see the importance that it is for me to be in his life. And this is just one example that I'm using, but it's many things that we are told by church leaders and pastors and preachers who claim to believe in his word, but they distort it and try to make us feel so ashamed of what we used to go through. Oh, just forget about that and don't worry about it. Yeah, don't dwell in it, don't live in it, but learn from it. Let it be the motivating factor of something that makes you do positive. Don't beat yourself up because you used to do this or you used to do that or because you still do it. Because if you believe in God and you love God, then eventually he going to get the glory out of it if you trust him. What was a stumbling block for you at one time is going to be what helps the next person out of they mess. And he can use you for that. If I had not been robbing, how could I talk to the robber and understand him and relate to him? And this is the whole purpose of why I'm talking to you today. And I'm going to make it all make sense, but I'm going to go back to the word. Verse 28, we in Romans chapter 8, verse 28 say, and we know that all things work together for the good of those who love God. First and foremost, it say all things work together, not some of them, not a little bit. Everything that attributed in your life, everything that happened, every circumstance and situation is working for the betterment of your life if you love God. Oh, because that's important. The only qualification was for you to love him. Not for you to be perfect, not for you to not smoke, not drink, not cuss, not do this. Now we know all of these things gonna come in time, and it should be things that you got to grow out of so you can grow into some new things. But what we talking about right now is the only thing that it takes for you to qualify for all things that work in your good is for you to love God. Love him. Not be perfect, not be this, not be holier than thou. Just love God. That's the only requirement, man, for you to love God. Not for you to be perfect, not for you to do this. So despite the fact that you may be smoking, despite the fact that you may be drinking, despite the fact that you may be unmarried and doing this or whatever they telling you shouldn't be doing, if you love God and you following his path and you seeking to be better, everything that's going on with you right now is going to be used for your good in the long run. This is what the word say. This ain't what I'm saying. I'm just living proof of it. I know it myself, but this is what the word say. It say in We know that all things work together for the good of those who love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose. How you know you called? First and foremost, you got to have that relationship. You got to build that relationship with God to where you want to point to where you can know he dealing with you and he talking to you. But on a simpler note, if you alive right now, if you breathing and you seeking something better in your life, and it could be worse. It may not be the best, but it could be worse, and it's a purpose for your life. Because right now you still here alive and well. And it's people who I know right now who is better than me that's dead and gone. But so they got to let me know that it's a reason why I'm still here. So it's a purpose for my life. So all things is working for my good because I love him and I'm still here and well. So he still got a reason for me to be here. That gives me purpose in itself on the simplest form. Now it can be bigger things that's going on to give me more purpose. But right now in the simplest form I know because I'm still here. Verse 29. For whom he foreknew. What foreknew means? See, I know that it means just beforehand. He already knew you before you was even here. But the definition of to have previous knowledge of, to know beforehand, especially by paranormal means or by revelation. So in other words, by something that's bigger than us, something we can't explain. So because he foreknew you, you also qualify for this right here, for all things to work in your favor, all things to work in your good, for your betterment. Because he foreknew you, he already knew you. Before you was here, you was a thought in God's mind. He already had a plan for you before you even stepped foot into this physical earth. He also predestined. Whom he foreknew, he also predestined. What does predestined mean? To destine, decree, determine, or appoint, or settle beforehand. Meaning even then, before he even put you here, when you was just a thought, he already had a purpose for you. He already had a plan for you. You still able to make choices in your life because you got free will, but it's an ending point that he already see. Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the thoughts I have of you, thoughts of evil, not of peace. That's what the words say. But because it say this, it also coincides with this right here. Before he even put you here, when you were just a thought in God's mind and how he operate, he already had a plan for you. He had a purpose set aside. This is what I'm going to do with Chris. This is what I'm going to do with Amy. This is what I'm going to do with Susan. This is what I'm going to do with Joe. This is what I'm going to do with Brandon or Kevin. I got a purpose for you. This is what God is saying right now. For whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his son. Now, what does that mean? Conformed means to be similar to something or seeking to obey or agree with something. To be similar like Jesus. What was Jesus? Jesus was God in the flesh. Did not God say we gods? See, I ain't got to be perfect like him, but I'm going to strive to operate in my God-given ability like he did, because that's all he did. Everything that was given to Christ is given to us. We got the same power to manifest things, to do all of these things that was given to him, because he was able to do it because God was in him and he's in you. That void is in your life. You able to do. We are the only creatures on the human earth that can operate and think and do the things that we do, similar to God. The Bible said we are little gods, just like him. We made in his very image and his likeness, so we were meant to do everything that God can do in a degree. And this is what he's saying, to be conformed to this image, this similar image of a God, and to obey and seek to agree with the things of God. This is what it's saying right here. For whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Meaning Jesus was the first like his kind, that we would be just like him after him. See, he was just the first to operate in his God-given abilities. Now he hoping that we can continue on and do the same things, be above us, operate outside of us. Moreover, whom he predestined, whom he already had a plan for. We in verse 30 now. Make sure. We in verse 30. Moreover, whom he predestined, these he also called. What does call mean? To summon or to notify employment or activity. For example, to be called to duty. They called me to work because it was already appointed for me to be there. I'm an employee of this. I'm appointed to be here at this certain time. And because of that, God is saying the same thing. For whom I predestined, mean I knew beforehand and had a plan and purpose for, I also called them. I also already let them know this is what I'm wanting of you. So if that hasn't happened in your life, then it's going to happen if God got a purpose for you. But he's going to call you. He's going to have you do some things because he foreknew you and he predestined things to happen for you. For whom he called, these he also justified. Now what is justified? To prove or show something to be just, right, or reasonable. See, a lot of times we try to justify actions and justify the things we was doing in our past while we talking about the past, or I was doing this and I was doing that because of this. When you don't owe nobody no explanation. See, God saying, I'm going to do all this for you if you just love me. Because it's the qualification for all these good things, these bad things that happen in your life to work together for your good now. So because you love me, I'm going to justify you. I'm going to make it seem right and just. I'm going to show everybody that it was all part of my plan to begin with. I didn't make you do it, but because I knew you was going to do it, I used it for the good and I used it for a part of my plan. So therefore, your action is going to be justified because now I'm bringing you to this place that I got you now. So therefore, your past is irrelevant. And whom he justified, he also glorified. So we know the Bible tells us God deserves all the glory. He shared his glory with no man. But it say right here, whom he justified, whom he made these things right with. He worked all this bad stuff for your good. He made it all come into perfect perspective and let it all come into play and manifest to show that it was needed in your life for you to get to the point that you needed to be. He say, whom he justified and he did all this in, he also glorified. Now the definition of glorified. See, now it was two definitions in the Webster Dictionary. One was to give honor and praise to God. And we know this type of glory. Now this is the definition, the second definition of glorified. It say, to make something seem much better or more important than it really is. I'm going to say that one more time. To make something seem much better or more important than it really is. See, I ain't named TD Jakes, Creflo Dollar, Joyce Myers, Michael Jordan, whoever. Ain't none of them named. We all just another person. But to be glorified, God said whom he justified, he also glorified. So now speaking in God, because I was just using them as examples, God saying when he bring you to this place where he put all this bad in your life, all these circumstances, situation that you've been through, that he allowed to make you the person that you are, he going to make you seem better and more important than what you really are. And it's just going to be the God in you. He going to allow you to operate in something that he giving you. Seeing all this happen in the word, I can use it with me because what prison did in my life, what being in the streets taught me, what making these bad decisions taught me. I can use all of this and say that, but I also can use the word. See, in Matthew 10:5, we're going to go back. Matthew 10:5, Jesus talking to the disciples. Now, listen to me clearly now. He say, these 12 Jesus sent out and commanded them, saying, do not go into the way of the Gentiles, and do not enter a city of the Samaritans, but go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. See, he told them not to go to this particular people in this day and age. My generation and my people, the ones who consider outcasts, the ones who consider thug, or she just a hoe, or she a prostitute, she a stripper. We the Gentile, because our Gentile means a person who is not a Jew, a person who looked at as not belonging to God. But we know that Christ died for everybody, Gentile or Jew. But right here and there, he told his disciples not to go to these people. Because first the Jews was going to reject him, but it was bigger than that. Because now, he already foreknew and predestined. He God in the flesh. He know what's going on. He know what he talking about. He know what he doing. And because of this, he told them not to go into Gentiles or the way of the Samaritans. Not because he didn't want them to receive what he was going to get to the Jews, but he already had foreknew and predestined somebody to go here. And I'm going to prove it by the word. We're going to speed up and jump to Acts chapter 9. Again, Acts chapter 9, we starting at verse 1. See, right now, he finna convert Saul. And if you're familiar with the Bible, Saul was a persecutor of the Christians. All these people who was following Jesus and believing in Jesus, he was going around killing them and doing all of this. And at this particular moment back in Matthew's, where Christ told his disciples not to go to the Gentiles and Samaritans, Paul was already doing this. He was already a Pharisee and a Sadducee. He was a leader in these people. He was already against everything Christ was talking about. So he was the outcast, the person that preacher now tell us, oh, you thugging, oh, you doing this, you ain't loving God. This was Saul right now at this very moment. Even back then in Matthew's, foreknew beforehand what Christ was saying this to his disciples. Now we're going to jump to chapter 9 and Acts. They say, then Saul, still breathing threats and murder against the disciples of the Lord. So he was a killer and he was killing the people of God. I'm just giving you a background check on him for those who don't know. Went to the high priest and asked letters from him to the synagogues of Damascus, so that if he found any who were in the way, talking about following Christ, whether man or women, he might bring them bound to Jerusalem. As he journeyed and came near Damascus, and suddenly a light shone around him from heaven. Then he fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? This Christ talking to him, this God talking to Saul. And he said, who are you, Lord? Then the Lord said to him, I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. It is hard for you to kick against the goads. So he, trembling and astonished as Saul, said, Lord, what do you want me to do? Then the Lord said to him, arise and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do. Now we're going to jump forward to verse 10. Now Christ talking to a man named Ananias. Ananias was a follower of God. He was doing everything right, so to speak, as far as in his walk, fulfilling his purpose of what God had called him to do. Now there was a certain disciple at Damascus named Ananias, and to him the Lord said in a vision, Ananias. And he said, here I am, Lord. So the Lord said to him, arise and go to the street called Straight, and inquire at the house of Judas for one called Saul of Tarsus. For behold, he is praying. And in a vision he had seen a man named Ananias, which was him, coming in and putting his hand on him so that he might receive his sight. Now look what Ananias said back to God. Then Ananias answered, Lord, I have heard many about this man, how much harm he has done to your saints in Jerusalem. And here he is. Here he has authority from the chief priest to bind all who call on your name. So Ananias was telling Christ, like, man, you tripping. This man thugged out. This man killing people and everything. What you need to do with him? He ain't worthy. He ain't about nothing. Ain't this what the preachers say to us? The thugs, the outcasts, the robbers, and all of this. Yeah, they don't say it. They say, oh yeah, God can be for everybody. But then when you come in still dressing how you dress and looking how you look, they judge you. And they want you to move to their beat and move to their rhythm. Not knowing that how you are, your swag, your character, and how God made you is for a purpose. So you can reach certain kind of people. The same thing he doing right here that I'm finna get to. But the Lord said to him, go, for he is a chosen vessel of mine, to bear my name before Gentiles, kings, and the children of Israel. For I will show him how many things he must suffer for my name's sake. Now pause. See, back in Matthew 10, verse 5, he told his disciples, who the 12 that he picked, he said, y'all don't go to these certain group of people. Y'all don't go to the thugs and the robbers and all these people. Don't go to them, because he already had somebody for him. How we know? Because it said right here in Acts, this same man that it just said 10 verses prior was killing the people who was following God. Christ just told a disciple that he is, look, he a chosen vessel of mine. See, I foreknew him. It's predestined. I call him. I'm going to justify him and I'm going to glorify him. Everything we just read in Romans 8:28 verse all the way to verse 31. See, Saul is like us. He like everybody who listening to me right now, who still smoke, who still drink, who still do whatever, who used to do these things, and people still holding it against you, but you love God and you trying to do something better. Saul is that right there. This is how we know that God is using everything in our past. Whatever happened to you, whether you were raped, molested, whether you killed somebody, whether you did anything, God is going to use it in order for him to reach certain people through you. But you got to allow him in your life and let him reach you right now at this very moment, and allow all those bad things that happen into your life that are bondage and chains holding you right now to be released, so that you can walk into something better than your circumstances and situation right now. And this proves it by the word of God. Right now, what he did with Paul. And to tie all this into us, don't let your past hold you down, man. And don't let nobody else hold your past against you and keep you from walking into your future. Keep you from being good right now. Everything that happened in your life was for a reason, man. Everything. Nothing was out circumstance. Nothing was just a circumstance or situation. Excuse me. But everything was for a reason. Everything had its purpose. Whether it was to teach you something, whether it was to build you up in certain areas, whether it was so that later on you can help somebody from going through the same thing that you went through. Stop them from going through it, because it may break them down, but you were strong enough to get through it. See, we got to always look at the silver lining, man. Look at the good, man, and just don't look at the negative in the situation and see what you can learn from it and get from it. Because I went through hard times, I could easily complain and say my life was so hard, or I could be thankful and say, God, thank you for making me so strong, for making me so strong-minded to where I can deal with these things in my life. I can complain and say, oh, these crackers sent me to prison and they did this. No, I made the decision to do what I did. But now because of that, it made me a better person. These things that I learned in prison in them 9 years I did, that I would have probably never learned in life had I been out here. I probably would not be breathing had I not went there. So what was a look like, oh, the devil had you doing this? Now God allowed it. See, everybody want to blame the devil and do this, but see, even the devil got to ask permission for God before he mess with you. It tell us this in the book of Job. It tell us this in the ministry of Christ. It say he was led by the Spirit to the wilderness to be tested by the devil. So who allowed it to happen? God allowed the devil to test Jesus. God allowed the devil to do certain things in our life, or to give our mind away to this. And a lot of these things wasn't the devil, it was just us. It was a devilishness in us. Everybody's so quick to say, oh, ain't no God, I'm God, God in me. Yeah, it's true. God is in you, but the devil is too. You don't want to give him the credit, though. Why you doing these bad things? The devil sitting back laughing like, man, I ain't make you do that. You just did that because you wanted to, because it's all you know. This all you've been taught. But at the end of the day, God can use it for your better, man. And it may seem like I'm rambling because I'm getting excited, man, and I'm just because I know, man, that nothing in your life was by chance, man, and everything in your past usually there's a fuel to motivate you and prepare you to a better future, man. Don't look at it and let it weigh you down, and don't let nobody put you in a box because of your past. Let your past let you jump outside the box, because those things you went through that was so bad, it happened for a reason, man, and you still here to live and talk about it and help somebody else get through it, man. And I hope just me talking and sharing just what's on my mind for this quick moment was able to help somebody, man. Chris Walker, man, Gentile Nation.